permeability of a soil. तो बेसिकली जैसे कि हम जानते हैं कि what is permeability? Permeability is a ability, is a property of the soil to allow passage of fluid through it. For example, कि जैसा कि हम जानते हैं कि हम सब ने एक प्रैक्टिकल देखा सॉइल देखा होगा. So soil, when the water or any kind of fluid when passes through the soil, that is known as the permeability. Means it is the ability or it is an important property of the soil to allow the seepage through it to like, and the permeability is always represented by the k, small k. It's also known as small k is also known as coefficient of permeability, where k is the rate of flow of water to allow per unit area. Means the permeability is always measures the rate, the time when the water passes to the distance through per time. Means it is measured in meter per second or centimeter per second or any like a velocity. So basically जैसा कि हम सब जानते हैं, like for example this is our soil and what we have studied, like permeability is the ability of the soil to allow flow of fluid through it. And when the water flow, when the any kind of fluid flows through the soil, it will flow through the pores between the solid grains. Means the fluid will flow through the voids between the solid grains. Means जो हमारा soil mass है उसमें जब when it allows the passage of fluid, so it will flow through the passage, it will flow through the voids between the solid grain. And it is, as for example, coefficient permeability is measured by coefficient of permeability. It is denoted by small k, and it is actual the flow of fluid through the whole area of soil mass. So it is not the true velocity. So for example, जो हमारा soil mass है, अगर if we actually measuring the coefficient of permeability, then the flow is taking place through the between the solid grains. So it is denoted by Kp. That is also called coefficient of percolation. Coefficient of percolation. Percolation, and it is also known as true permeability. True permeability. Okay. So permeability. What is permeability? Permeability is the ability of any medium to allow a passage of fluid through it. So now it comes for what is permeability. Permeability is defined as the ability of soil to allow passage of fluid through it. Soil permeability is usually represented by the coefficient of permeability, and it is denoted by small k, where k is the rate of flow of water per unit area of soil. जैसे मैंने अभी आपको बताया कि permeability जब हमारा soil mass है, when the water flow, when any kind of fluid flows through it, it is taken as a whole soil mass. And when we talk about coefficient of percolation is actual flow of a soil, actual flow of the fluid through the solid grain, to the distance to the voids of the soil mass. Okay, so when we for example, जैसे कि हम देख सकते हैं, this is our soil mass. When the water flow is this, so now the distance between the voids, now the distance between the solid grains is when the distance between the solid grains is larger, or we can say that when our voids between the solid grains is larger, then more water will flow through it. Means the permeability of that particular soil will be high. That means, or we can say that that particular soil is highly permeable. And when we take another soil mass, which is means with the distance between the solid grains is very lesser, which means कि जो हमारा flow होगा, that will be also lesser, or we can say that the discharge of the fluid will get also lesser. That means that particular soil will have a less permeability, and it is also called as a low permeable soil. Okay, why we need to study permeability? Permeability हमें पढ़ने की क्यों जरूरत होती है? For example, कि जैसा कि हम सब जानते हैं, we have seen important structure like dam हो गया, आपका कोई भी structure, columns हो गए, bridges हो गए. So permeability plays a very important role in that, because when the water flows through the soil, mass, it also lowers the bearing capacity. Means when the maximum discharge flow, for example, when आपने देखा होगा कि जब हम डैम या कोई भी important building कंस्ट्रक्ट करते हैं, तो जब हमारा जो फ्लूइड का फ्लो है, जो पानी का फ्लो अगर ज्यादा होता है, तो उससे क्या होता है कि वी कैन से दैट पर्टिकुलर सॉइल वी नीड टू स्टडी आइदर द मैक्सिमम वाटर विल फ्लो थ्रू इट or the lesser permeable soil. So basically we can say that the importance of permeability is very important in designing filter. When we filter means कि, for example, this is our drainage filter, this is our dam, and this is our drainage filter. Means it will allow the flow of water through it when we are constructing any dam, क्योंकि ये हमारा एक support है. When the water flows through, when the water comes through it, so how much water will go through that particular filter. That is why it is very important कि जब भी हम कोई dam construct करते हैं, we need to design a filter. Filter will allow the passage of flow through it. For example, अगर मैंने dam construct किया है, this is our water level. Okay, so basically this is our water level. So the difference between, for example, this is a head, this is a total height of the water. Okay, so we can also the total height of water means the total head, and this is the at the lower end, this is the head of water h, this is h1 and this is h2. Now we can say that the total head loss means the total pressure difference. As we know that the key pressure difference kya hota hai, when the how the water will flow, when there is a difference, means when there is a difference between the height, then only the any kind of fluid can flow. Means for the flow of fluid there should be a proper head difference, then only fluid can flow. As we know that जैसे हमने पहले भी एक छोटे क्लास पढ़ा होगा कि water always flow from the higher pressure to lower pressure. That means कि water will flow, pressure का क्या मतलब होता है, when the height of the pressure of the water is measured by the height of the column of water. Means कि जितना ज़्यादा difference होगा total height में at from the top to bottom, that particular fluid will flow at the higher rate. Okay, so the total head difference is equal to delta H, which is denoted by delta H, H1 minus H2. ठीक, और when the water flows, अगर हमने drainage filter, why it is important to design a filter, because due to head difference अगर हमने उसको नहीं कंट्रोल किया, so the pressure at the lower end will be higher and it may cause in a failure of the dam. That is why it is very important to design a filter, and for designing the filter we should know the permeability of the soil. And there is another important formula, permeability is equal to CD10 square, where C is a constant, and D10 is a diameter of the soil particle. D10 is equal to diameter of the soil particle, whose grain size means the size of the solid grain, diameter of soil particle whose grain size is less than 10% finer, whose grain size is less than 10% of finer particles. Okay, finer particles. Okay, so basically for designing if we talk about the dam construction, it is very important to provide our drainage filter at the bottom of the dam, and for the designing the filter we should know the permeability of that particular soil, कि हम वहां पे कितना अगर filter डिजाइन कर रहे हैं तो कितना fluid हमारा वहां से या कितना water जो है वो हमारा flow हो सकता है, उसके लिए we should know the permeability. Okay, importance of permeability is used in the designing the filter. Filter are used to design prevent piping in hydraulic structure and subgrade drainage. Basically piping, what is piping? Piping is like when we talk about the soil mass, when the water flows through between the soil grains, that is flowing through between the solid grains. So piping is a failure. Piping is like when the fluid passes through to a solid grain, it will flow like in the form of pipe, and piping is result in a failure of dam as well. To prevent the piping, to prevent the failure of dam, to prevent the piping, we should design filter, and for designing the filter we should understand the permeability. What is the permeability of that particular? We have understand one important. And now if we talk about determining the yielding of well, means key, for example, if we want to know how much discharge can come through the well, we should know the permeability. Means फॉर अंडरस्टैंडिंग दैट इज कितना पानी हम किसी भी अगर कुएं से हम कितना पानी वो डिस्चार्ज कर सकता है, तो उसके लिए व्हाट इज डिस्चार्ज इज अ रेट ऑफ फ्लूइड, मतलब कितना पानी हम वहां से निकल रहा है. तो फॉर दैट वी शुड नो द परमेबिलिटी. द थर्ड इंपॉर्टेंस, द परमेबिलिटी ऑफ सॉइल इज इंपॉर्टेंट. यील्डिंग ऑफ वेल, असेसिंग द सेटलमेंट ऑफ बिल्डिंग. फॉर एग्जाम्पल कि हम सब ने एक बिल्डिंग, हमने सिविल स्ट्रक्चर से हम देखते हैं तो फॉर एग्जाम्पल अगर हमारा फ्लो थ्रू दैट पर्टिकुलर बिल्डिंग थ्रू बीनीथ द डैम बीनीथ द स्ट्रक्चर अगर ज्यादा है, दैट में ऑल्सो कॉज द सेटलमेंट, मीन्स कि फॉर एग्जाम्पल if we have taken two structures, for example this is our hydraulic structure, this is our bridge. So if there is a soil mass, and if that settlement of that particular column is S1 and that another column is S2, that means the settlement difference is equal to S1 minus S2. That can also call failure of that particular bridge, means the soil beneath the soil beneath the structure will get settled, means कि जो हमारा सेटल, फॉर एग्जांपल जब फ्लूइड फ्लो हो रहा है, जब हमारा सॉइल वाटर फ्लो होगा, तो it may cause some settlement, okay, that will definitely cause when the fluid flow through that particular soil mass beneath the bridge. तो फॉर एग्जाम्पल इफ ये इस वाले कॉलम में अगर सेटलमेंट S1 है एंड फॉर सेकेंड कॉलम अगर सेटलमेंट S2 है, देन टोटल सेटलमेंट इज इक्वल टू S1 माइनस S2. इट मीन्स कि हमारा सेटलमेंट अगर मैक्सिमम होगा, दैट में ऑल्सो कॉल द फेलियर ऑफ द दैट पर्टिकुलर ब्रिज. For that we should understand, for that it is required, we should understand the permeability. So आपने जैसे देखा कि permeability plays a very important role before designing any structure, because it is a property of the soil कि allow the flow of fluid through it. अगर हमारा flow ज़्यादा होगा, that means it is may cause the settlement of that particular construction, and it will may result in that particular failure of that particular structure. Okay. परमेबिलिटी ऑफ कैलकुलेटिंग द रेट ऑफ कंसोलिडेशन, जैसे मैंने अभी आपको बताया है, तो जो हमारा सेटलमेंट होता है व्हेन द वाटर फ्लोज थ्रू द सॉइल मास, इट मे कॉज द सेटलमेंट ऑफ दैट पर्टिकुलर कॉलम. एंड व्हाट इज कंसोलिडेशन? कंसोलिडेशन मींस कि जो हमारा सॉइल मास है दैट विल गेट कंप्रेस, which result that will get compressed. मैं आपको थोड़ा सा ब्रीफ करता हूँ कंसोलिडेशन के बारे में. थ्रू विच, फॉर एग्जांपल ये हमारा अगर सॉइल मास है, when the water flows, so when we compress that particular soil mass, when we apply pressure on that particular soil mass, so that particular soil mass, if it is having a water between the void, तो इट विल रिजल्ट इन द एक्सपल्शन ऑफ वाटर थ्रू द वॉइड्स. मींस जब हम अगर हम कोई एक गीली मिट्टी लेते हैं एंड व्हेन वी कंप्रेस दैट पर्टिकुलर सॉइल, तो जब हम उसको जाते हैं, तो आप सबने देखा होगा कि जो हमारा उस सॉइल मास में वाटर प्रेजेंट है वो बाहर निकलना है. दैट इज कॉल्ड द कंसोलिडेशन. और कंसोलिडेशन से सॉइल का बेनिफिट क्या होता है? इट विल गेट मोर कंपैक्टेड. व्हाई इट गेट मोर कंपैक्टेड? ड्यू टू एक्सपल्शन ऑफ pore water. Pore water means the water between the solid grain. It will get removed from the voids of the soil, and which will result in the compaction of the soil. So consolidation is a very important property due to which soil get compacted. And how soil compacted? It will result due to the expulsion of pore water between the voids. Consolidation can also be represented kmv, and rate of consolidation can also be kmv, unit weight of water. This is called the unit weight of water. So if we know the rate of consolidation, we can also measure the permeability by using this formula. Okay, so we have seen why it is necessary to understand the importance of permeability. Now it comes the permeability of different soil mass.